No, what he's saying, when a normal person disappears, it makes the news for a few months, but basically it either gets resolved or forgotten. But this case of this Canadian theatre magnate, it hasn't gone away. The case of his disappearance dates back over 102 years, and as we like to say in the business, when you're small, you might be gone. Now, Ambrose Joseph Small disappeared on December 2nd, 1919. He was a Canadian theatre magnate for a number of years, a philanthropist and philanthropist who owned several Ontario-based theatres, including the Grand Operas in Toronto and Kingston and the Grand Theatre in London. The last known sighting of Small occurred the evening of December 2nd, 19. He had been known to travel without notice, so his disappearance was not reported until the early 1920. And of course, his body was never recovered. Now, Small's disappearance became a national news sensation because right after the war, Canadian citizens were eating up what he calls scandalous media like a chicken takes the pen. Now, various theories explaining Small's disappearance were publicly promoted, and the famed mystery writer Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was consulted, although he elected not to pursue the case. Now, Small was born on January 11th in 1866 in Newmarket, Ontario. On December 1st, 1919, Ambrose sold all his theatre holdings at a profit of 1.7 million Canadian, which would be probably equatable to 20 million now. The following day, he met with lawyer F.W.M. Flock in Small's office at the Grand Opera House. Flock left at 5:30 p.m. and was the last person to see Small alive. Now, that night, Small disappeared from his office. No one who testified for the police claimed to have seen him leave his office or in the Adelaide or Yonge Street area outside the building. A newsstand operator, Ralph Savian, claimed to have seen him because he was mad about the late shipment of that day's newspapers. At the time, however, this claim was discounted by police, who considered it to be an attempt by Savian to gain fame from the case. Now, Small had no motive to disappear. The millionaire did not take the money with him, nor was there any ransom note, let alone evidence of kidnapping. At 53, again, Small owned theatres in 7 Ontario cities and controlled ownership of 62 others. A self-made millionaire at the height of his career, he had holdings that were drawing great assets since, again, the World War I economic boom. Now, because Ambrose Small was known to disappear occasionally to womanize and carouse, his absence was not reported, nor was it noted for several weeks. Now, in January 1920, Flock, along with Teresa Small, now alarmed by Small's lengthy absence, notified the police. Small eventually offered a $50,000 reward for information about her husband's disappearance and whereabouts. The reward went unclaimed. Now, the police launched an extensive investigation, but he was not officially declared dead until 1924, and the case remained unsolved until being closed in 1960. Now, the week of his disappearance, Small's Opera House were playing Revelations of a Wife, a play that attracted full houses. Police did analyze the plot and its themes, but found no leads. Small had not used the play to provide cryptic hints. Now, Teresa suggested that Small had fallen into the hands of a designing woman, but police found no candidates. Along with his office, Amby, as he was known locally, had a private secret room with his own entrance. There he would entertain settling of gambling debts. As well, it served as a frequent silent area for many private liaisons with actresses and chorus girls, which were employees at his Ontario theatres. The room was scoured for leads, but with no success. Now, Ambrose was not the only notable disappearance in December 19, as his former secretary, John Doughty, had not been seen since the day of his disappearance. The last sighting of Doughty in Canada was at a bank where he observed cashing in $100,000 in bonds. Now, he was eventually located in the States and extradited back to Canada to stand trial, but was only convicted of the theft of the bonds. No evidence was ever found he was responsible or had knowledge of the disappearance of his boss, Ambrose. Now, the 1921 Des Moines Mystery Man case was linked to this and drew a lot more interest than a lot of people expected. Now, reported in several newspapers in 1921, a man was purportedly discovered in Iowa bearing an uncanny resemblance to the missing man. Private Detective John J. Brothy stated that the man, who he claimed was Small, was a half-crazed cripple. He stated that he had been dropped off in Des Moines by an unidentified motorist who claimed he'd accidentally struck Small with his car, badly wounding him, and that he hoped he'd receive the best medical care available. Now, Brothy claimed that the man had a gunshot wound in his neck, a serious concussion, and both his legs had been severed from the knee down. He further stated that the man didn't speak for 3 weeks before finally breaking his silence, stating, "I am John Dowdy. I came here from Omaha. That is all I remember." At this time, however, John Jack Dowdy was incarcerated in Canada and had been for several months, meaning the crippled man could have not been him. Now, Brothy further claimed that he showed a photo of Ambrose Small to the man, to which he responded by pointing at the photo and stating, quote, "Yes, that is me." Now, Brothy stated the man's facial characteristics were identical to the missing magnate's. However, the mystery man weighed a significant amount more than Small at his disappearance, as Small literally was small at the time, weighing only around 100 pounds. Now, further reports state that the man was taken to custody by the private investigators. However, the Des Moines police were quoted as being unaware of any of these actions and had not been contacted by the investigators. It can be assumed that the lead turned out to be a dead end, as the case continued on long after this event. Now, the OPP reinvested the case at the behest of the Attorney General in 1936. Now, they re-interviewed some witnesses and obtained typed copies of the report and various other source documents. Now, Hammond's conclusion, the Attorney General for the OPP, that Small was murdered in a plot in which his wife was a prime mover, is in marked contrast to the Ontario government's public position that Mrs. Small, and hence also a large monetary bequest to the Catholic Church, was beyond reproach. Hammond also strongly implies that the original chief investigator, Austin Mitchell of the Toronto Police, ignored or repressed evidence which would lead to Mrs. Small as a suspect. Now, when Teresa died October 14, 1935, bequeathing the majority of her holdings to the church, valued at over 500,000 British pounds, in June 36, her remaining possessions were to be auctioned off. Now, Ambrose's small sister, Florence, presented her a letter of confession from someone known only as Reuter, who claimed to have been the murderer. Poor Ambrose was killed on December 2nd, 19. I know that part of his body, the trunk, was buried at the Rosedale Ravine dump, and other parts of her body were burned in the Grand Opera House furnace. You will be surprised, my dear Florence and Gertrude, to learn that I am more than responsible for your brother's death. God forgive me, Reuter. The sale, however, continued, and a letter was published in several news publications worldwide, including the New York Daily News and the Portsmouth Evening News in the UK. Now, Toronto reporters eventually contacted Sir Arthur Conan Doyle about the case when the author was on a New York visit. Doyle showed interest in the case, producing the headline, "World's Greatest Detective to Solve Small Case." In the end, Doyle decided not to pursue the case. Now, Charles Fort, an American writer and researcher into anomalous phenomena, wrote about the unexplained disappearance of Small and Ambrose Bierce and asked, was somebody collecting Ambroses? Now, Small appears as a major character as well in modern literature in the Michael Ondaatje novel In the Skin of a Lion. The events concerning him in this novel after his disappearance are Truman Capote fictitious. Now, Small also appears as a real-life disappearance case in The Convict Lover by Canadian author Marilyn Simmons. In 2009, a book by Toronto Star feature writer Kate Dobbs, marking the 100th anniversary of Small's disappearance, was again published. So, or soon to be published. So, quite a disappearance. And what do you say, non-disappearance? Did he decide to basically remove himself from society? Did his wife knock him off? Anything is possible. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what we're doing here, what our special, what do you call, Canadian true crime stories, let us know with a like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget, if you disappear, make sure you can take some money with you, because if you want to stay hid, it's going to cost. Thanks for listening. Bye.